Okay, so I'm going to try this again. Hopefully you can hear me. So I tried to do a live about this earlier tonight, but I got a little bit emotional about it and just decided just to not talk about it. But I have been thinking all day long. Hey Christian, what's up? About how Tamir Rice would have been 18 today. And if you don't know who he was, Tamir Rice was a 12-year-old African-American boy from Cleveland, Ohio, who was playing at a park. And he was playing like a lot of kids do, with a little toy. A white woman called the cops. She thought that Tamir was older and bigger than he was, and called 911. And police rolled up, and within I think it was 3 seconds or 4 seconds, the car basically hadn't even stopped rolling before they opened fire on him. So writing about Tamir Rice's death for me, back when I used to do more newsy things, was one of the toughest things that I ever had to write about. And part of that was because my own sons were very close in age. So my oldest son is 19, so he was just a year older than Tamir. And there's a lot of research around how Black children are perceived to be bigger and scarier and all these sorts of things. And when you see pictures of him and you see he was like a total, he was a kid, and if you put yourself in those same shoes of being 12 and think about the things that you used to do when you were that age, and how his sister was present at the scene as well, because it was a park, they were playing together, and her brother had been killed, had been shot to death by this officer, and she was handcuffed at the scene. So you picture, this is now one Black child is dead, and then a second one is traumatized. So when I saw that today he would have been 18 today, it's been 6 years since that, it's hard to think about lives. Hey, hi. It's hard to think about lives being snatched away like that. So I wrote something actually a few years ago when I was managing editor at Shondaland, which is Shonda Rhimes' website, and it was about the mental health toll that raising Black children takes on you. And any parent, obviously, you worry about your kids and you think about what if something happens to them and all that sort of stuff. But there's a really specific sort of thing I think that happens when you're the parent of a Black kid, and you know all the data, all the statistics of what might happen, and it's not just a matter of confrontations with law enforcement. It's also a matter of what happens when your child goes to school. And I know from my own experience, I was always underestimated by teachers. They never thought that I was as smart as I was. And you see how this plays out with your own children, and it's really disturbing. So I wrote this piece called "Is My Child Next?" And I interviewed a psychologist or social worker named Philippe Copeland, who is at Boston University. And let me just read you some of the statistics that I cited from this piece. So at the time, this was 2017, a survey from the Children's Defense Fund had found that nearly 70% of Black adults see the current times as tough or really bad times for Black children. So that was 2017. The majority said life was actually harder for Black children today than it was when they were kids. And 2/3 of the respondents to this survey who directly care for Black children, so that's parents, grandparents, or babysitters, said they're worried about their child or children being victimized. And a large majority believe that many Black children will be victimized before reaching adulthood. So that's a lot to deal with. So I think sometimes when we see the headlines about Black Lives Matter right now and all of that, some of this is a new conversation for people. And I'll just put it out there. If you're a friend of mine, I'm always willing to engage and have conversations, about this and about what this experience is like. Not everybody is, and that's fine. This is another part of the piece which I remember being very difficult to write about. I said the enormity of what Black kids regularly experience in America cannot be underestimated. Consider just a snapshot, and these were recent news stories, mind you, just within the month of me writing this article, the previous month. In late August of that year, a group of white teenagers in New Hampshire allegedly tried to lynch an 8-year-old Black boy at a park. As his mother explained, her son had previously, quote, had kids call him the N-word and tease him for being a different race. Earlier this month, so this was the month that I'd written it, a group of white teenagers in a car screamed racial slurs at a Black 11-year-old in Utah as he walked home from school. He felt very terrified and actually told me he thought the kids were going to shoot him, the boy's mom told the local news. That's an 11-year-old. A little more than a week later, news broke about a graphic video of white middle school boys in Virginia pinning down Black kids in a locker room and simulating raping them while yelling racial slurs. You see the kids asking to get up and screaming, one of the mothers told a local news station. So this is the sort of thing that happens to Black children in the United States on a regular basis. And as I said in the article, these incidents all serve as slaps in the face. As I wrote, just in case you thought you could raise your kids how white people do, well, you better think again, because you can't. So, like I said, from my own experience, racial slurs were a regular thing for me in my own schooling experience. And in my neighborhood, I was regularly told by my teachers that I was not college material. I've had years of, back in the days before Uber, cabbing while Black, where you would stand on a corner in Chicago or New York City or DC or whatever city I was in, and a cab wouldn't stop for you because you're Black. And actually having to have white people hail a cab for me. Being followed by store employees, that still happens. Before coronavirus, when I actually used to go to stores, that used to happen all the time. Hearing about Black friends who would be stopped and frisked. And one of the things that I had said in this article was that my own son had been attacked on the playground or the schoolyard at his school, and some kids squirted lotion on him and called him the N-word. So this was 2017 in my own family. And so so like I said, this was all on my mind because of Tamir Rice. This would have been his 18th birthday. If you think about your own experience in your own life of what your life was like when you were 18, maybe you had good things going on. Maybe there were struggles. Everybody in life has struggles, but the good thing is you actually got there. I got there. I didn't have my life snatched away like he did. And one of the things that Philippe Copeland, the expert that I spoke to for this article, this was an interesting thing that he said to me. He said that Copeland said the hashtag empathy seen after the killings of Black children does nothing to assuage the perpetual anxiety of parents with Black kids. Instead, he says, the responsibility for helping Black children feel safe has to stop resting solely on their parents' shoulders. People need to get in the lives of Black people in a meaningful way and protect us and our children. So that made me wonder, for my friends who are not Black, what are some of the ways that you are in the lives of Black people? in a meaningful way? And how do you, through your actions, protect us and our children? This is something else that Philippe told me. He says, real change will begin to happen when white people, both adults and kids, step up and offer to defend Black children and not be bystanders to anti-Blackness. He says what this will require is for white Americans to do some serious soul searching about why they still prefer to live in all white neighborhoods, why they still prefer racially segregated schools, and why 75% of white folks don't have any non-white friends. But more than that is required from white America. There needs to be responsibility and accountability and not just sympathy. We need everyone to show up beforehand. So, on this day that baby would have been 18, I feel like I'm going to cry again thinking about it. If you've never seen what Tamir Rice looked like, Google his name. It's Tamir, last name Rice, R-I-C-E. Do an image search for him and you'll see like the sweetness and the innocence that he had, that every child has. And imagine what it would be like for you if you had gone to a park when you were 11 or 12 years old and 13 years old, around that age. You go to a park and you're just playing and minding your own business, and then next thing you know, the police roll up and within 3-4 seconds they shoot you and you die. And imagine if that was your child, how you would feel. And then imagine that for Black people, that's our experience all the time, for generations and generations and generations, and more generations. So I hope that you guys are having a good night, and that you remember to love each other and to extend that love. And I am constantly thinking about I was telling my friend Shani Gilchrist earlier today that on my 2020 vision board I had put race unity on it, because that's what I believe in so deeply. But I couldn't have anticipated, none of us could have anticipated everything that has happened so far this year in terms of this issue. And we've seen the names change. The Dixie Chicks announced they're now just the Chicks. Aunt Jemima is no more. Fair and Lovely, the skin lightening cream, is going to change their name. But with that example, you change the name, it does the same thing. It's still a skin lightening cream. And there's been generations of people in Asia and South Asia who have been exposed to that branding, that your life will be better if you use this skin lightening cream, and then you'll get a job or a boyfriend or whatever. I'm a Cubs fan. My beloved Sammy Sosa, who looks like Casper the Friendly Ghost now. That beautiful chocolate skinned Dominican brother is like this color now. So anyway, the point being that cosmetic changes aren't what our society needs. I'll take it. Change the name, change the picture, all that sort of stuff. It's all good. But each of us is required to play a role in this, in dismantling racism. And we may not be comfortable all the time with the way that our lives change. And that's okay. Because if you think about a child like Tamir Rice, who had his life snatched away because black people tend to think that black children, or white people tend to think that black children aren't children, that they're bigger and scarier. Every black parent has that moment where you're wondering, when's that fine line between your child being cute and being a threat to people when they walk out the door? When is that going to happen? And it happens at a pretty young age. There's a lot of blood soaked into the soil of this country. And the sacrifice, or anything that gets tough, I think we owe those lost lives it. Peace.